When we're getting ready to embark on a digital transformation, ERP or HCM implementation, we're often consumed by all the things we should be doing to make the project successful. But what's even more important, or at least just as important, is the things you shouldn't be doing, the things you should stop doing as part of your digital transformation. In today's video, I'll talk about what those things are. My name is Eric Kimberling. I'm the CEO of Third Stage Consulting Group. We're an independent consulting firm that helps clients through their digital transformation journeys. And as I said at the start of the video, we're often looking for the easy answers, the silver bullets, the prescriptive playbooks of things we should be doing, the best practices, all that stuff that's going to help us be more successful. But what not enough companies think about when they're going through their transformation is to avoid the things that they're doing and to prevent some of the bad habits that a lot of organizations have. The first thing we can stop doing in order to be successful in our project is to not overanalyze the software evaluation or the technology evaluation. We see companies day in and day out that want to overanalyze the situation. They want to find that perfect answer, the silver bullet. They want to address every single little nook and cranny of what the technology can and can't do. And while we do want to make sure we find the right software for our organization, and we want to be diligent and thorough in our analysis, there's a point of diminishing returns where we can overanalyze it and we're not going to get much return. And in fact, for every dollar an hour we spend on continuing to analyze our options and to try and make a decision, we are losing out on another hour and dollar of resources that we could be using to implement that solution more successfully. So the key is here, and one of the best ways I can think of to help ensure that you get to that answer in a way that doesn't cross that point of diminishing returns, is to ask for outside help. Look for that objective advice that can help you quickly get to that short list and quickly make a decision once you've arrived at that short list based on your specific requirements so that you can invest more time and money on the implementation. The next thing we can stop doing is, once we've selected the technology and we know what technology we're going to implement as part of our digital transformation, is to just rush straight into implementation. A lot of times momentum is high, we're excited, we anticipate a lot of good things that could come from this transformation, and so once we've selected the software, we see the possibilities and we want to jump straight into implementation. And we often refer to this as the cliff diving phenomena. It's companies that blindly jump straight into their implementation. System Integrator tells them that the resources are going to be on site next week. We're going to start billing by the hour next week. We're starting to pay for our subscription licenses next week. And suddenly the meter is running, but in reality, we're not ready. We haven't defined what our future state processes are going to be. We haven't mobilized the team yet. We don't have a clear plan and strategy. We haven't rationalized what the system integrator's plan and resources strategy is going to be. So all those things we need to figure out as part of our implementation readiness phase. And having an implementation readiness phase to take that time up front before you start the implementation will save you exponentially more time and money later on. So while it may feel like you're going slower and that you're not getting started or just doing something right away, taking that time to go through a formalized implementation readiness phase will save you a lot of time and money later on. Another thing we can stop doing as part of our digital transformation in order to be successful is to stop deferring too much to the technology, to stop assuming that the software is going to give us the answers on how we run our business. We all love that answer. It sounds great to think about the silver bullet, the easy button, the best practices that come within the software that we can just flip the switch in the cloud and suddenly we've got our processes defined for us. It'd be great if that were true, but rarely does that work. And the reason for that is a couple of things. First of all, every company is different. Even in the same industries, companies operate differently. They have different sources of competitive advantage. They want to be different in some ways, not in the negative change-resistant kind of way, but more from a strategic point of view of how do we have an advantage over our competition. The second reason why we don't want to just assume we can defer to the software is because today's technology, cloud software, is relatively flexible compared to software 20 years ago. While we don't have the same flexibility we might have had with our on-premise types of solutions, cloud-based solutions still have a lot of tools that allow you to customize or tailor workflows and processes to fit your needs. So there's a lot of decisions that need to be made when you flip the switch on your software in terms of how the processes are going to flow and how it's going to support your business. So if we find ourselves in a position where we've just deferred to the software, what'll happen is system integrator or the vendor is going to ask you, how do you want your process to look? You're going to look at them and say, well, you tell us because your software should have the right answers for us, and we're going to be at a stalemate. So we need to give some direction in how we want the software to be configured in order to support our business, simply because the software is so flexible today. Just as we don't want to defer too much to our software to tell us how our business is going to run in the future, we also don't want to defer too much to our system integrator. And what I mean by that is system integrators often position themselves as one-stop shops. Companies often think that the system integrators can handle everything they need in their digital transformation, but the reality is system integrators have their strengths, but they also have their weaknesses. So we need to understand what those weaknesses are, we need to plug those gaps, and we need to augment the strengths and capabilities of the system integrator. A couple of examples of that are organizational change management and data management. Those are two areas that we find system integrators generally aren't very strong, but they're very important to our transformation. So how do we address those gaps? How do we augment the technical software-specific strengths of the system integrator to make this project more successful? The other thing we want to make sure not to over-defer to the system integrator on is their proposed project plan and resource plan. A couple of different ways to look at this. One is when they propose a project plan to you, oftentimes they're typically doing that in sales mode. They're trying to convince you that their solution is the best offering in a competitive situation. So their best interests are not necessarily to be 100% realistic or to be conservative in their estimates. Their best interests are to be aggressive in the pricing and to assume best case scenarios. So what we need to do in those system integrator plans is validate that it's the right approach, it's realistic, the assumptions match reality, and that we've also augmented the capabilities of the system integrator with other work streams like change management, data management, some of the things I mentioned before. And then another thing we need to stop doing as part of our digital transformation is to fixate too much on the technology. And what I mean by that is software is something we can see and touch and feel, but the things that are going to make the project successful are oftentimes the things we can't see and touch and feel. So things like your process definition, your process improvements, your organizational change management, data management, those sorts of things are the things that will ultimately make or break your technology transformation. But oftentimes those are the first things to fall by the wayside when we get behind on our timeline or we start to run over budget. The other part of this too is we don't want to lead with technology. We want our business processes and our organizational change to lead the charge, and technology is more of an enabler. So if we look at the people, process, and technology equation of a transformation, it's people and processes that will ultimately determine the success or failure of your project, and technology is simply more of an enabler in most cases. All three are important, but we don't want to overemphasize technology at the expense of people and process, which is what many organizations do. Now, the final thing we need to stop doing when managing our digital transformations, our ERP, HCM transformations, is to stop hearing what we want to hear. We're all looking for those easy buttons and silver bullets and easy answers. And we just need to recognize that these are difficult projects. They're hard. It's going to take more time and effort and heartache than we expect it to take, and we need to be prepared for that. We may be sold a vision of something that looks a little bit different than that early on when we're first starting our transformation, but we need to be ready and prepared and act as though this is going to be a difficult transformation. And anytime you hear an easy answer or a silver bullet, you should approach that with a level of skepticism. And one of the links I've included below is a link to some of the common industry hoaxes, we call them, that are perpetuated by the industry to fuel this perception of easy buttons and seamless and painless implementations. So I encourage you to check out that article that I've included a link to below for that. So these are some of the things to stop doing during your transformation. These things are just as important, maybe even more important than the things that you do need to do. Hopefully this helps you understand some ways that you can navigate these transformations more successfully than most organizations. I've included some links to downloads for some very helpful information below, including our annual ERP report, which provides some best practices on how to tackle your digital transformation in the coming years. I've also included some videos that I recommend as well. And I also ask you to please like and subscribe to this video, and I hope you found this information useful. Have a great day, and we'll see you soon.